Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new podcast series, Three Business Tips with Sharik Javed. And I'm very excited that today Christian has joined me all the way from San Francisco. It was not planned. And I just came back from San Francisco last week, really impressed. And now we have the first guest. And we will learn a lot from him. And he is the owner and CEO of a big podcast media network, and he will tell about it. I'm so excited. So he will tell us about his story and also some three wonderful tips. Welcome, Christian, to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Sharik. Appreciate being on and talking about Pantheon and what we're about. So let's do it.
Let's do it. So I told Christian to tell us it's such a big network, but how your journey started, yeah. So and
Yeah.
how you came into
Start at
podcast.
the start. Start at the beginning. We started about 8 years ago. To be honest with you, I'd spent years in a tech business. I've mostly been an entrepreneur throughout my life. I've worked for a few companies, but usually I ended up making a company and then it gets bought, and I live out of contract. And then of course realize that I don't like working for other people and end up making another company instead of doing.
I want to interrupt. This is going interesting because I
Good.
am a tech guy and I just quit my job like 3 months ago and
Mhm.
trying to go this direction
Right.
and podcasting also doing. So I'm really excited. I can learn a lot.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what happened. Yeah, I sold a company in 2007. I did pretty well with it. Stayed with the company probably 2 years too long. We ended up getting bought by a investment company, Carlisle.
Mhm.
And when I sold my company, I joined a company of about 1,300 people. When I left, it was 30,000.
Wow.
And that's within 7 years. And when you get to that sort of company, you're just a number.
You were
And
just
if you
number.
have any kind of an entrepreneurial spirit, it just doesn't really work for you. So now I've always been a musician my whole life, ever since I was a kid, and I chased a recording contract, and played all the big clubs in LA when I was growing up in my 20s. But I always had a day job, and I had a certain level of expectation for my living conditions. So I did. I always worked, and I was lucky and got into the tech business before there was ever a tech business. This was in the
Mhm,
mid
mhm.
80s. It was in the infrastructure business, in the networking side of things,
Okay.
physical layer. And, I made a career out of that. But I always had an interest in music, and I continued to play music throughout my life. Flash forward to 2014, left the job and started asking myself, okay, what do I want to build now? And podcasting had become kind of a big thing the year before. If
Yeah.
Most people know, if they are familiar with podcasting, it was a big hit podcast in 2013 called Serial,
Mhm.
which kind of put podcasting in the zeitgeist. It put it in the public conversation. Put it that way.
Okay. Mhm.
And while I had been familiar with it because a podcast had started in about 2004, if I remember right, 2004, 2005, with the introduction of the iPod. And then, of course, all the iPhones. It just was more of a hobbyist type of pursuit. It Apple never really monetized it, and so it kind of languished a little bit for its first
Mhm.
10 years. But around 2013, 2014, things started to change, and I thought, oh, here's a gold rush. Let me jump into this and see if I can make something happen.
Mhm.
And if I can, it's always, do something that and because I am familiar with music, and my big interest, I play music, but I wouldn't call myself a great musician.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested in how music plays with the culture,
Okay. Very.
and how music works, specifically in the late 20th century, and
Uh-huh.
how it was very much involved, especially in America.
Mhm.
The how the counterculture used music, and a feedback loop occurred. The music also played to the counterculture
Mhm.
to eventually change the counter to become the culture. And that's really the world that we live in today, is, the idealism that was born out of the 60s. In America, we are still battling that.
Okay.
When you get right down to it. So, and I kind of lean on that side of the fence, and think that is a great leap forward for society, and wanted to articulate that story. So I started with our first podcast, Rock N Roll Archaeology, which is a scripted 7 to 10,000 word deep dive. It's very college level. In fact, it is used in college curriculum around the world
Oh,
now that that's been around for a few years. And we started, we call it post-war. It really begins 1945. I say 1945 to 1995. Now most people will say, well, rock and roll began in 54, 55. Yeah, that's true. But our first episode was called The Precursors. So it was like, how did we get to that big explosion in 54, 55 with Rock Around the Clock, and of course Elvis being the first big giant international rock and roll star. And we've continued that journey, and we're 8 years into this, and we're about at 1973. So we're about
okay.
halfway through the process of telling this entire story,
Wow.
which,
A long time.
God forbid it's going to be 16 years. I'm hoping I can get it done in 10, maybe 12. That would be great. And because it takes us so long to research, write, and produce, and it's really the research and the writing
Must,
is
must be a lot of research going back to the history and finding
yeah, a lot of
everything.
books, a lot of documentaries, a lot of books, and are put into that, of which we credit all of that if you go to our show notes. And
And it's a very valuable actually.
Yeah. And so it takes us, a lot of time to put these together. And, we put these shows out. It became pretty successful. I'd say in 2018, in the summer of 2018, it was the number one music podcast in the world. It didn't last very long, but it was there for a while. And
Wow.
it does take us this time to put together. So our fans started writing back in between, saying, "Hey, can you do something else while we're waiting?" And light bulb moment. Yeah, of course. And
Love
so
your
we created the original 6. And by the way, I have a team around me. It started with my writing partner, who I've known for
I
40
wanted
years.
to ask this because this is a lot of research
Of
work.
course, I don't believe in the great man of history theory. I believe that all things require good people around an idea, a concept, and then executing on that. And so, I started with a really good friend who knew the music history as well as I did, and we'd been arguing about it for 40 years anyway. It was the perfect candidate to come in and do this. And so we started with that. We then brought in what was kind of a person to help us market the podcast, who ended up becoming really my business partner,
Mhm.
Peter Varioli. And now Peter's the COO of the company. And then we brought in a sound designer who, again, was somebody that I'd known for 40 years and had been playing music with since I was a kid, Jerry Danielson. And so that was the original team that we started with the company.
Mhm.
And so then what we did was we created 6 originals, and we call them the original 6. A show on books. So we call it Rock and Roll Librarian, a show on film. So
Mhm.
Real
Very
Rock,
interesting.
things like that. And lo and behold, we had 6 shows, all filtering through. And the interesting thing that we did, which was sort of of an intentional decision and sort of not, was we just started putting the shows into the Rock and Roll Archaeology podcast feed.
Okay.
We had some folks complain and say, geez, why am I getting all these shows in my feed? I just want Rock and Roll Archaeology. And being the sales guy that I am, I knew I just needed to train my audience. So I went to the audience and said, hey, look, think of it like a magazine. Okay. You open the magazine, you go through the articles. If a headline speaks to you, you read the article. If it doesn't, you bypass it, go to the
Forward.
next one.
Mhm.
So as podcasting went from downloading, which caused storage issues, and understandable why some people may have had a concern about the amount of podcasts that were on their device, to streaming now, which almost all podcasts are streamed. It just seemed that it was a natural move for people to accept that, and they did. We don't get any complaints about that anymore. The next kind of leap was we had people started calling us or emailing us saying, "Hey, I want to be a part of your network."
Wow. That is
Other music shows,
that is
and it
incredible.
got to the, again, the next kind of intentional decision, sort of intentional. This one was definitely much more intentional, I think, was we decided to focus on a single vertical, which was music
Okay.
podcasting. Most of our
Yeah, that
competitors
you
out
found
there,
your niche, yeah, that is good
yeah,
also.
yeah, most of our competitors were doing, being jacks of all trades. Crime drama is like the big subject matter out there.
Yeah,
Sports
that
is
will come to
big.
it also. Next question I can pose it now also, then you can relate. Like you started in 2014 and 13 was the year it was going big. But recently, last 3 4 years, everybody is doing podcasts, and to
Yeah,
stand out,
yeah.
good quality with the normal quality, and it gets difficult for the normal listeners also to choose from. It must
Yeah,
be
podcast
challenging
discovery
also.
is a big problem these days,
Yeah,
and
but
so by focusing on a vertical market, all things being music, we knew that
how
we
do you
could
plan? How do you
capture
stand out
particular
from that?
audience. What's that?
How do you stand out from the others, or what's your strategy? Like one thing
Yeah,
must be quality, but still,
the strategy is to own a vertical market, which works for us in a lot of ways. First of all, we know that an audience that likes a music podcast is probably going to like another music podcast, and so having now over 100 shows that are dedicated to telling stories from music from a variety of voices, a lot of backgrounds, a lot of different types of music. We are very music agnostic. We like it all. We love it all, as a matter of fact. And so we're just trying to just focus on just the idea of music and telling those stories. So I think that made us stand out. At the same time, we knew that we needed to engage the music industry itself. We needed their support. They provide guests. We work within the system, and we knew that the music industry is rather insular. So when I walk into a meeting and knock on a door, I come in to say, "Hey, I know your business. I'm part of your business," as opposed to my competitors, which are, well, I do some of your business, but I also do a bunch of other business as well. So I think I have a leg up when we do
yeah,
that.
that's pretty good. So be part of the tribe.
Yeah.
Another thing, Christian, I wanted to say that because this podcast, we are trying to motivate the young business owners who
Mhm,
started a business, but
mhm.
the first year is very challenging because
Oh yeah. Well,
you gone
not
from a
just the
stable
first year.
every year, but first
Yeah.
specifically because most of the people quit in the first year because
Yeah.
they move from a stable income to not sure about how much revenue they will get in the next month and how to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So being a successful businessman or an entrepreneur, of course, many of our viewers are in different backgrounds, not just podcasting, something else, tech
Yeah.
or
Mhm,
some
mhm,
bakery or whatever. But
mhm.
some tips you want to give, like how they should stay strong and what good awaits them in the second years or years to come. Some motivation and some tips, like 3 tips from your side.
You bet. I'll try my best here. The first is do something that you know. I would
Mhm.
start that. Um, it's always a gamble to take a leap of faith and try to do something on your own. Research, prepare as much as possible. I think I could have done a better job on that, to be honest with you. I kind of just jumped in with both feet from day one. I knew music history, but I didn't know podcasting as well as I do now.
Mhm.
And at the same time, it was a nascent business. It's still a nascent industry. In fact, I
Mhm.
wouldn't even call it a business until about 2017, 2018, when Spotify spent, over $1 billion acquiring companies.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that of course made the money folks pay attention. Up until then, it was really difficult to find, any sort of a revenue stream
Mhm.
strictly from podcasting. We made some podcasts for other folks, so we did work for hire.
So this is
And
a
and
situation
and I
when you
guess
are not
I
sure
guess if
if
I
it is
can
business.
pivot, pivoting, you got to just pivot with the opportunities that come at you.
Right.
You can't just say, no, this is not what I do. I do this other thing. If it's in the realm of possibilities and it's going to provide revenue, and it's not going to burn resources dramatically, it may make sense to pivot to what the opportunity is that comes at you. You can do that so long. And I will say, once we built the company to where it started to become mature, and we really started looking for, some serious capital, a lot of our advisors and even the potential investors that we spoke to, they wanted us to focus. And there were some good ideas in that. And basically what we did was we took the best performing pivots and
Mhm.
we focused on 3 of them. So that might be a second tip, is, pivot until you get to the point where you really have to choose a direction, where you really have to focus on core business practices,
This is good tip.
that makes
Let's
sense to
note
you.
down this one for you. This
Yeah.
is someone who was not sure about this business will clicks, but he pivoted and then he is
Yeah.
successful now.
Yep.
This is very
And,
important.
and then a third tip might be, look, it's what do they say? It's 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. A great idea is a great idea, but it remains a great idea if you don't execute on it. And
Yes.
and that's sometimes a difficult thing to kind of figure out. All you can do is wake up every day and put in 110%. That's all you can do. And
I love
if you
it. I love
do
it.
that, the chances are that, you will end up being successful. If you have enough runway to get there, it's the easiest thing to do and the hardest thing to do at the same time.
To work hard daily, and if you, but then all three are then connected, tips, because you
Mhm.
cannot work hard on something you don't believe in it. So you have to, and also it should match with what you know and
Yep.
align
Yeah.
with your passion, like it aligned with your passion of love for music,
Yeah.
otherwise it would have been very difficult,
Yeah,
but I love the
we
three
we we
tips.
turned down some opportunities because they were out of our wheelhouse. They were we would the DNA of the company would change dramatically, and I was afraid we would get lost in the mix. And I think we're still correct on making those decisions. Hindsight's 2020. But at the time, it's hard to walk away from some money. But if it doesn't make sense to further the mission of the company, then you probably should.
Very important point. And being in business are relatively new, this is very important because you are thinking about making revenue and revenue quickly. But on the other hand, for example, I have a digital marketing business, and I
Mm.
have two fixed areas, niche where I'm targeting. And all of a sudden, something very big comes with big revenue, totally different. Then we have to make a decision. It can happen. Then all of a sudden, the company purpose and mission changes. Some people will go to that, or some people will believe in their idea and still stick. Wait a bit and wait for the right opportunity. I think it is very, very interesting, and I think there is no fixed formula to that. But the thing
No,
is, believe in your mission and vision strongly, then you will also let go of this opportunity and stay with your focus. But
yeah,
very interesting these tips. I think the viewers who are listening, and especially the people, the followers in Munich Valley, and also all the followers who are in Asia and listening to us, will learn from, because the Silicon Valley and USA, they are the land of entrepreneurs, viewers, and people have known
Yes.
this, So
Yeah,
I can
yeah, but the rest of the world's catching up to us here.
I think up to it. Yeah, nobody can stay on the top without working hard and
Yeah,
learning continuously.
yeah.
And I'm looking forward to continue this relationship with Christian. I'm sure, and all the viewers, what we can offer is that you can comment, and I will get the answers from Christian and comment
Yeah.
back. Write to if you write to me personally also in my private inbox, I will still get make a list, send it to Christian, and we will get back with the answers it will.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you, so Christian, tell our viewers how they can follow you, on which website, and how they can follow your podcast.
Sure. You can find our website at pantheonpodcast.com, and you can find all of our pods there and click through them to listen if you're online. Of course, I suggest if you're a podcast listener to just open up your podcast app and start with Pantheon Podcast, which is the main feed, and almost all the shows are in that main feed. But each of the shows have their individual feeds as well. And what we find is people become big fans of one show or another, and then they support them through that individual feed as well. You can find us on Facebook at Pantheon Podcasts. I think on Twitter or Pantheon Pods, and Instagram, I think we're Pantheon Pods too out there.
So guys, so the link of the website is in the description of this post, and the Facebook and Instagram social media links are also mentioned. Do follow Christian and get some inspiration, and do come back to these three tips and also give us your feedback. So this is the first episode, and I am really excited and looking forward to long-term relationship with Christian. And for the viewers, I wish you all the best in all your missions in life, and I hope that you can get some inspiration from this show.
Well, I
Follow.
hope somebody does pick up that and inspiration. That would be great. It would make me feel good.
So at least somebody already picked up an inspiration. Let me tell
Huh?
you straight away, and that is me. So I already picked up inspiration, and
Good, good.
that's already a job well done.
Right, right.
And I'm sure our followers, we have a huge following actually, especially in the I call it Desi community, the Pakistani and Indian expats
Nice, nice.
living in Germany, and
Mhm,
also
mhm.
some across. And now we made a lot of good friends also in Silicon Valley. By the way, it was a pleasure to have you here, Christian, and I
Thanks
hope
for having me, Sharif.
it was a pleasure, and you will grow further and further.
Mhm.
And maybe in some weeks time or some months time, we will do another podcast, and we both are at a newer levels, and we will share our stories with the viewers.
You
So
just
thank
let
you
me
very
know.
much.
Great.
And in the end, if you want to wrap up the show with some last line for our viewers who are still thinking to enter into entrepreneurship, but they're afraid of their next paycheck.
Yeah, well, that is a concern. You have to have some resources to be able to do this. I've been doing it for a long time, and was able to come at it with some resources. I'm not sure that would have happened if I was 22 years old, and I don't know if I was smart enough, put it that way, at that time.
Mhm.
But if you can find that, with a great idea, great concept that's fleshed out, I think that's important. I don't think people are, willing to put any kind of stake into something that isn't well thought out. And there's nothing wrong with putting pen to paper and coming up with a good business plan. Know your market, know your audience, or know your customer. Hugely important. Know your vendors, or who they're going to be, or your potential collaborators
Mhm.
are out there. Like I said, I picked a business that I kind of know that business, the music business, the music industry. So I kind of knew where the bones were buried to start with. So those are the things that I would suggest. But if you feel 100% that you have something that's really going to make a dent in the universe, you just have to go for it.
If you have
You
the
won't
faith.
be happy if you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
otherwise,
Yeah.
very good tips. Thank you very much, Christian. So it's a
Sharif,
pleasure
my
here.
pleasure.
Thank you. And signing out from the first episode, and a lot of exciting episodes are coming up. Already, a lot of guests have signed up. Looking forward to the support of all our viewers. Thank you very much. Signing out from today from Munich. Sharik, and signing out, Christian from San Francisco. Bye bye.
We'll see you later.
See you later, guys.